Hello, it's Daryl here. Thank you for downloading the Total Soccer Show. On today's show, Taylor and I will be doing the Did Not Qualify for the World Cup 11 draft, where we each try to draft an 11 of players who didn't make it to the big show. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the possible tournament that may be coming to the United States. Taylor grills me on why I'm not in favour of the actual Did Not Qualify tournament in real life. And we talk a little bit more about MLS and young Americans getting minutes in the league. Today's show is sponsored by Health IQ. Health IQ gives lower life insurance, discounted life insurance to runners. If you are running already, you can save 25.5% on your life insurance. If you're a soccer player, you're probably already doing plenty running, enough to qualify for the discount. Go to healthiq.com/TSS. The TSS is lowercase. healthiq.com/TSS to see if you qualify. Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who wants to continue yesterday's conversation. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello. You do, right?
Hello, I do. It's an interesting introduction, but correct.
And I kind of like it because, we do a show every day, Monday through Friday, and I feel like there are a lot of things that we leave unfinished and then we've got the next thing to move on to.
Yep.
Today's one of those days where there's not some major news event that we have to address, so we can look back a little bit and continue yesterday's talk.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, we have the failure draft, as I'm calling it, where we're going to each draft an 11 composed entirely of players that will not be at next summer's World Cup.
The DNQ draft, I call it.
Yes, that's probably a nicer way to put that.
The wish you were here draft.
But I like that too. But I think part of this is born of the fact that we had that conversation last night about the theoretical World Cup NIT, whatever tournament you want to call that one, and we had different approaches to it. But when I went home last night,
different approaches. You mean we disagreed?
Yes,
we disagreed hard.
Well, but I actually think we did disagree, but I think we also disagreed partially born out of that approach, because I do think there were certain ways that you were seeing things that I didn't see them or didn't quite understand. And so I really did. I went home last night, I thought about it, and I was like, I wonder what he meant by that. Because even like some of your phrasing, I found it reminded me of like the Hound of the Baskervilles episode of Sherlock, where he's like focused on the case because the guy calls it a hound and not a dog or a wolf, and he's like, why would you use hound? It's a very specific word. And I felt like I went home last night and thought about it. I was like, that's a strange way to put that. I wonder why he phrased it like that. So basically, I have questions.
So before we get into this, just in case anyone missed yesterday's show, we reviewed the USA's 1-1 draw with Portugal, which we were mostly very impressed and excited about, with a tinge of sadness because that's not the team that's going to the World Cup. And then we talked about the idea that was first floated on Twitter by a lot of fans, essentially, of what if we had like an NIT-style tournament of all the teams that didn't make it here in the US. And I think towards the end of the day, Stephen Goff and Jeff Carlisle both tweeted that they'd heard, or they basically semi-reported that US soccer were, quote, looking into at least bringing over Italy, Netherlands, Chile, Ivory Coast for either a series of friendlies or possibly a tournament of sadness.
Yes.
So just saying that this is kind of a thing that might possibly be happening in some form. So we definitely should talk about it again.
Yes. And I feel like this is a very meta thing we're about to do, because it is, I kind of am going to ask you some questions, and a lot of it is going to be, but it's more so than the usual,
First,
like, hey, how you doing?
First, thank you for having me.
There you go. Yeah.
Pleasure
You're always
to be
welcome. Yeah. Tell us more about yourself. What would you like your title to be?
I have a key to the door. That's why I'm always welcome.
Well, my first question for you then was, when you heard about this or heard about it being reported more seriously, how are you thinking about it? Are you thinking about it as a fan? Are you thinking about it as like a pundit or a person who talks about U.S. soccer for a living? Are you thinking about it as like a representative of U.S. soccer? Because
I'm on the board.
Well, more so like how U.S. soccer looks to the broader soccer community. Like what is your approach when you think about this tournament?
My genuine answer is all of the above.
Okay.
Because I'm kind of all of the above,
All
right? But I guess my gut reaction was how this would feel as a fan to have this tournament either during or before the World Cup. It would make me sad. It would make me sad to see the team I support, the US national team, playing in a sad second-rate tournament while everybody else is getting ready for the World Cup. And I do mean everybody else, because I know Guinea, not going to be in the World Cup. Everybody in Guinea is going to be talking about the World Cup and getting ready to watch it, even though their country isn't in it.
while I'm trying to listen to you in preparation for asking you more questions, I'm also thinking about the upcoming draft, and I'm like, why did he go to Guinea? Who's he drafting from Guinea? Who do I need to be aware of? What's happening here?
There is someone on my list from Guinea.
I feel like I can guess who it is. But before we get to that, so then why do you think, like, why would that be sad? Why do you think American fans would be sad about that? Why is that any sadder than playing two friendlies that don't matter?
Because it would be a constant reminder of, like, and especially like the smallness and sadness of the tournament, which would have a new name and probably would have some like second or third tier sponsor. Do you know what I'm saying?
It'd be like RC Cola. That's who picks it up.
Wolf Cola would be.
The right cola for closure.
Genuinely, I actually can't remember. I think Coca-Cola sponsors the World Cup, right? So it would be like a second or third tier soda.
I like that we're just not naming the other obvious one.
Okay,
here.
so we're going to have the Is Pepsi OK tournament.
Yeah.
In the United States in like, early June or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just the idea of doing something second rate, to me, it doesn't. It's not like something that eases the pain of not being in the World Cup. It kind of just reinforces it.
All right, well, then let me ask you this then. Would it help if, and really the answer can be no to this, but like, would it help if it was the sort of like, instead of it being the United States traveling around Europe and playing maybe a couple friendlies, because even at most, I think it's maybe going to be like 2, although I think we've done 4 at times in the past.
If the US was sort of the warm-up opponent for someone else's series of send-off series.
So if we played 2 to 4 games on the road, I feel like more likely 2, but who knows, versus if we had people come here. We could squeeze
3 out of it. I think the US normally plays 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if we had people come here, and like we did have sort of a mini, not even necessarily a tournament, but it was like we'll play Italy, Italy will play Brazil, then we'll play Brazil. I mean, obviously that's not the case. We'll play Italy, Italy will play Netherlands, then we'll play Netherlands. Whoever has the best record there, like, is the winner, quote unquote. But couldn't that be a way to like get you revved up for the World Cup? That it sort of is like an informal tournament, and then we've got the main event after. It's like the undercard, basically.
No, because to even claim you're the undercard to the World Cup. The World Cup is so sort of like it's putting so much more importance on that tournament than it would deserve.
Okay. Then that's another like
any
area.
relation to the World Cup just seems wrong.
So that's what I guess I want to get at is like, so would you consider yourself to be like a World Cup purist? Because like when I mentioned the United States failing to qualify was going to be like front page news in a lot of countries, I think your response was like, no, I feel like Chile failing to qualify will be front page
well,
news.
The Netherlands or Italy definitely would have been. Yeah.
And so, do you think that a tournament organized by the United States would be like such a sacrilege in like?
No, I mean it would be a blip on the radar for everybody else. Most people would not know it was happening. Right? People in England would not know this tournament was happening.
So then why do you? So then it does just go back to you thinking it looks bad for U.S. soccer.
It also looks bad on the outside. Yeah, U.S. soccer looks bad for doing it, in my opinion.
Okay,
right.
And then I think part of that was that you felt like it was an arrogant move, and that was another one. I'm wondering why you used that phrase.
The reason I use that phrase is because, as far as I know, when other nations don't qualify for the World Cup, their instinct isn't to be like, okay, but we can organise another tournament. Their instinct is to be like, oh, all right, we just won't be involved next summer, and we'll come back after that. Like everybody else, basically just like they submerge for a bit and then they come back after the World Cup. Their instinct isn't to be like, okay, but we're going to do this instead.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm
US would be the only, as far as I know, they'd be the only nation that had this instinct to do this instead. It's almost like they won't accept missing out. You know what I'm saying? Yes. That's the part about it that like feels weird to me. I mean, maybe that's like the American exceptionalism thing where, you know, we're not going to have a king. we're gonna host our own tournament. Yeah. But something about it feels weird to me.
I can see that, except that in this situation, America is not exceptional in the sense that there's lots of other countries who failed to qualify for the World Cup.
The majority of countries always fail to qualify for the World Cup.
But here's my question. And I'm kind of springing this one on you, but can you think of another World Cup where this many, like, quote unquote, major competitors or countries weren't involved? Because I feel like every time we have a World Cup, there's usually one country that misses out. Like, I feel like the Netherlands has missed out previously. We've seen, but even I think, like, last World Cup, the major one out of Europe was, like, Sweden didn't make it, and that was in a playoff against Portugal. But I can't remember, like, huge countries not being there. And this time around, it seems like more of the usual suspects are not involved.
Okay, so it's Italy and the Netherlands. Those are the big two that missed out, right? Historically, it's not Chile. It's just that Chile happened to be in a spell of being a very, very good international soccer team, right? So Chile is weirder this time because they're the Copa America champions and they have such high-profile players. You know, I mean, Chile have missed World Cups in the past, I'm certain, and no one has been like, oh no, Chile's not there. It's just this time it's Alexis Sanchez, Arturo Vidal. There's big names on that Chile team, and they're really enjoyable to watch, right? So it is a huge thing that Chile are missing because we'll miss out on watching them there. for a lot of people as well, the US missing it is not that big of a deal. Like, there were World Cups before 1990 without the United States, and now it's just we've got used to making it is the problem, and thinking it's some sacrilege to the rest of the world that the US isn't there. That's not the case.
But out of Ghana, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, all not going to be there, all regular competitors at the World Cup. So again,
it's semi-regular.
Really? I feel like Ghana's been there for a good long while.
Yeah, but Ivory Coast, though, doesn't always make it.
That's true. Since what? I think 2002 they've made every single one, but that might be wrong. Either way, so you're saying that it isn't the case that maybe this feels like more major countries aren't in there? Maybe it's just
I think it does, but only because it's Netherlands and Italy. It's two major European nations not making it. That's the only thing that makes it exceptional.
Yeah.
Even if it had just been the Netherlands and Italy had made it at the expense of Sweden, it wouldn't be that exceptional.
Okay. That makes sense, I guess. But
it happens. England missed it in 94. I lived through it. I lived through England missing the World Cup in 94.
But I think, but again, I feel like that's like individual perspective. And what I'm saying is, I do wonder if part of it is that if Italy and the Netherlands had made it and, say, Ghana did and Chile did, then suddenly I don't know if there is this motivation for people to want to organize an NIT, or theoretically or maybe or jokingly, because it sort of is like, all right, it's going to be Andorra and it's going to be, like, I don't know, the Maldives or whatever. Like, it's going to be a bunch of countries that we don't
that is true, but against. Before the US didn't make it, the Netherlands weren't planning a tournament. The Netherlands were planning to just sit tight, let the World Cup roll on, and sort of appoint a new coach and start again in late 2018. And I kind of feel like that's the traditional response, is to just stay quiet for a bit and then come back stronger when you can.
Okay, so that's what you'd prefer to see then from the United States.
I think so. Basically, but I realise as I'm saying
take your licks and then get it together.
Yeah, take your licks. That's it. Yeah, but I realise I'm just being kind of traditionalist, and maybe it is an American thing to be like, all right, we're going to make the best of this situation, right? Yeah. It's like moving to New York with $5 in your pocket, kind of thing. I'm gonna make this work somehow.
I don't think that's the best idea to do. But so I guess then, like, my final-ish round of questions are like, but it does feel like it is a terminology thing as well that's frustrating to you, because when this story kind of gained traction last night, like, I tweeted, like, I'm worried that Daryl's eyes are going to be stuck in his head from the amount, like, the biggest eye roll ever. Yeah. And your response was like, no, I'm not really concerned about friendlies. If they want to organize a bunch of friendlies, that's different. But it sounds like basically if they did everything, like, familiar to a tournament but didn't call it a tournament, maybe you'd be okay with it. But it's just the idea of organizing a tournament is what frustrates you.
If it was a series of friendlies against, like, we played Italy, we played the Netherlands, we played Chile, and that was it, and they were just called friendlies, and it wasn't called like the Pepsi, what would you call it?
The Pepsi almost?
It would be called like the Pepsi Summer Challenge or something. It wouldn't even be called like the we didn't make the World Cup thing, right?
That's an upsetting name.
But that's a realistic version of what this thing could be called, right?
The Pepsi Burger King almost
almost famous.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what it is.
Penny Lane would be the
So
theme
basically,
song.
You're okay with the United States organizing a series of friendlies. They can be home or they can be away.
But I would prefer that they were away because again, we talked about Tyler Adams and all those young guys who are going to be on the US team, maybe Christian Roldan, someone like that, to get them to go and play a series of friendlies in Europe, I think would be much more beneficial to the US national team than hosting friendlies that we play here in the US. And especially if it's sort of big sellout friendlies, if that's what we're going for. If it ends up being on, you've seen those games where they play them on a field that normally has artificial turf and we lay some grass over the top of it because we want to get as many people in there as possible. Like, all that stuff I think is really, what I'm talking about is US soccer trying to make money off of this, right? Yeah. There'd be US soccer trying to make money off the failure of qualifying for the World Cup. You'd be much better served for the players. If we're just focusing on what's best for the players, it's better to get a squad together, send them to Europe, and they can play against teams that are preparing for the World Cup. That's good experience for young American players.
Does the current feeling about U.S. soccer, though, like your current feeling towards U.S. soccer, do you think that plays a part here? Because, again,
as an organization, you mean the federation?
Yeah, I think so. Because, again, like, what I'm going back to is, like, everything you're saying makes sense, and I can understand it. I still don't get why it's a big deal. Like, why? Like, who cares? Is, I guess, where I still go back to. And the answer is you care. But, like, I mean, I'm wondering if, like,
I mean, there are more important things, like what the tax bill is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Healthcare repeal. You know what I mean? There's very, very many more important things.
I don't know, dude. I saw you, like, I feel like you've just been reading about this since last night. Like, nothing else has mattered. This has been your primary focus. Yes. Like, real life is important. Yeah. Certainly.
I would take 7 tournaments in the United States called whatever version of not making the World Cup if we could get DACA.
But it still feels to me like there's something that I'm missing. Because to me, it's like, but who, like, it feels like, oh, but like people, it'll be bad. It's arrogance. It's American exceptionalism. People might not like it, but also we don't really register on the radar. But also U.S. soccer wants to do it. It just feels like there's a lot of swirling emotions in there, all of which are negative.
From me, you mean?
Yeah. And I'm not saying that you're being negative. I'm just saying like I'm still having a hard time being like, yeah, but at the end of the day, like, couldn't it just be like a one-off random thing where we kind of feel better because we get to watch the USA play some good teams?
Part of it is that I think it just slowly cheapens the idea of tournament football to keep inventing tournaments just to fill a gap in your schedule. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so then basically adapting an existing
tournament. We already have the
tournament.
International Champions Cup. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's different. That's an incredibly
but it's not,
important
right?
tournament.
But that is a thing where they've taken summer friendlies and branded it and made it look like a tournament when it's really not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think I'm not a fan of that continuing to happen to soccer in general.
I think it's an easy way to have another company handle logistics is part of why that appeals to so many clubs, and also just because, yes, money factors into it too. But I'm with you then that, yeah.
I feel like I'm giving Senate testimony here.
Well, no, it's again, it's part of it is that, like, really when I went home last night, I was just sort of like, but I don't get it. I don't get why, like, because some of the words you used, like arrogance, like that is not a word that ever came into my mind, and maybe that's because I'm an American and I'm arrogant. I don't know, but like it just some of the words that you and other people have used when writing about this or talking about this have been like harsh and kind of like, oh, this is a laughing stock. This is going to make us a joke, and I just like I don't see that, and so I'm curious to hear like an opinion from a person who I respect about why that might be the case.
Is someone else joining you later today?
My dog will be with me.
The bigger thing is that
I only respect one of them.
I think you really forget like how much of a build-up there is to the World Cup and how focused everyone is on the World Cup and how silly it will look to have this weird little tournament that happens like just before the World Cup, featuring like it's almost like a big loser parade of all the teams that didn't make it. That's really what worries me about it.
The loser parade.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm going to hold off assigning more like hypothetical sponsors because I would like to one day have other sponsors on this show, and I feel like if we keep mocking large corporations, we're in trouble.
RC Cola are not happening.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
We're on Coke's good side, I guess.
Yeah, I've held off making fun of Burger King, but I feel like I maybe just did that.
One thing, okay, to move us on, if you don't mind, because we're pretty deep into the show at this point. I feel like I've been grilled sufficiently. I'd also be open to any other ideas to take advantage of the situation that don't look as bad. And you and I were talking sort of last night, I think. One idea I'd genuinely be good with is if you got all the US players together and just had a camp in the United States where they really practice together every day for a few weeks, which is kind of what you get when you go to a World Cup. One of the benefits is you get to really focus on international soccer for like a month or more, like 6 weeks solid, right? Because there's all the prep that goes into it. That's time spent together in many, many ways. You all know each other better by the end of it. You know your coach better. You're more drilled in the tactics. That's kind of underrated as a tournament experience. You could just have, in a central location, the entire US roster meets, maybe 30 players meet up, and you just practice every day. You watch the World Cup games together in like a bonding experience kind of thing. And that's it. The camp is just practice, watching games, and then that squad is more united, ready to go into the next cycle.
Or they're just disillusioned and angry. There's also that possibility.
There's that possibility. But you get what I mean?
Like their time off and they're not getting to play.
But that would be a way to take advantage of it. Because MLS will have, the 2-week break probably for the World Cup. So you can at least do a 2-week camp where those players spend time together and then everybody goes back. But you've spent time together. You've watched the World Cup together. You've talked about tactics together. The new coach, who we don't know who it is, but maybe the interim coach, has you all under one roof for a couple of weeks. That's something that doesn't draw attention like by having some weird Mickey Mouse tournament, but also spends time together and is valuable time spent. Well, time spent valuably.
My concern here is that U.S. soccer they don't mind $1, and I kind of like. No, I don't even like the idea, but I like the idea of having that camp and then having them split into 2 teams, and you're like finalist candidates for head coach of U.S. soccer, whoever they may be. Each gets to manage one team. Off. Whoever wins, that's the way it goes. Yep.
The U.S. soccer combined coach off. Yep. And you draft. They would draft their team.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, they go back and forth.
So that would be very silly, but it would also be really interesting.
Oh, it'd be horrible. I mean, that so quickly becomes reality TV of like you bring in 4 candidates, and
so the
each
Sam
of them gets
Allardyce 11 versus the
Martin O'Neill 11 versus the Michael O'Neill 11 versus the Tav Ramos 11. Sure,
love it.
I don't think
Who else
most
put
of
their
those
name
people
forward?
are candidates.
Was it Laurent Blanc put his name forward? There was a French coach who
Oh,
said,
way back when? Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. Laurent Blanc said he was interested, but he's got a whole host of problems that are going to keep him out of the running for U.S. soccer.
Okay.
And we'll leave it at that.
So lots more to come on today's show. But first, we have a returning sponsor, Taylor. Returning sponsor is Health IQ. Health IQ. Health IQ is a life insurance company that wants to reward people who take care of themselves.
All right.
People who play soccer, go running, really like take physical care and are physically fit. They will offer a lower life insurance rate to anyone who takes some exercise.
That's right. I think the quote on the front page, the running you already do can save 25.5% off your life insurance.
Yep, and that's because there's research that shows that you have a 49% lower risk of heart disease and a 30% lower risk of all-cause mortality if you run at least 10 miles a week.
Now
So
let's talk about that for a second, shall we?
Yeah, because you might be wondering, well, why are these soccer guys talking about running? Health IQ contacted us and said, we know that people who play soccer, one, they run during a soccer game. Two, they stay fit outside of the soccer game. So we're pretty sure they run 10 miles a week. Therefore, we're pretty sure we have a lot of listeners who run at least 10 miles a week. Question I had for you, Taylor, is if I play a soccer game, just one game, how many miles am I running? And I know you went and did the research.
Well, it's difficult because this is mostly coming from like professional game where you have fewer substitutions because amateur level you can kind of have revolving substitutions. But with that said, soccer of the major sports is the most distance covered by a player, the average distance being 7 miles a game.
7 miles a game.
Some midfielders up to like 9.5, and then obviously some even more up to like 10 and 12 in a game.
So even if you play an amateur level, you're probably doing 5, maybe. Yeah. So that's just one game on a Sunday. If you do that and you also just run to stay in shape, and maybe you play indoor like I do, I'll bet I do 10 miles a week. And I wouldn't call myself necessarily focused on running, but I go for a couple of jogs. I play indoor. We do practice on Tuesdays, and I play a game on Sundays. You play 2 games on Sundays, so you're covering 10 miles in one day.
It adds up.
Yeah.
Yes. It feels that way. It
Mostly
certainly feels
with the
that
ball
way.
at your feet.
Oh, yeah. Well, for one team, not for the other. The other one, I'm usually trying to make runs off the ball to get the ball at my feet.
So all of this is based on some actual studies that do show that people who run have a lower risk of heart disease and all-cause mortality, as we mentioned. So therefore, Health IQ negotiates with life insurance companies to genuinely get you a lower rate, as we said, up to 25.5% off. Whoa,
that means a lot of the players who played for the U.S. yesterday, I feel like, could get a decent rate.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I'll bet guys like Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie are doing more than average running.
I would say so.
Yeah, if you're chasing
Tyler
people
Adams
down.
in particular, yeah.
Tyler Adams in particular.
Probably DeAndre Yedlin, too, now that I think about it.
Yeah, some overlaps, right? But yeah, if you're right mid and you end up at left mid and then you run back to right mid, as Tyler Adams did a lot against Portugal, you're covering some ground. So we know that buying life insurance is, kind of a big deal, right? So people don't rush into this. But definitely, if you are considering buying life insurance and you are physically fit and you run 10 miles a week, then definitely you'll get the best deal with Health IQ. So please keep Health IQ in mind for life insurance if you meet the criteria of 10 miles a week.
Do we have a website that people can go to, or should we just put it in the show notes?
Let's do both.
Okay.
So if you go to healthiq.com/TSS, the TSS is lowercase, healthiq.com/TSS, you'll go to a landing page specifically designed for Total Soccer Show listeners who run 10 miles a week. And then any questions you have, Health IQ will take it from there.
Indeed. Thank you to Health IQ for sponsoring today's program.
All right. So one other thing we wanted to touch on from yesterday was I think on the back of what was talked about, there's Christian Pulisic's article for Players Tribune about young players getting more chances in Major League Soccer, conversation that happened in the Fox Sports studio with Lalas, Arena and Stone. We started talking about methods of trying to get more minutes for young Americans in Major League Soccer. And we kind of said, if we dismiss the idea of a quota, which is one of the things that was raised on Fox Sports. If we don't say it's like every team must field 5 Americans, we said that feels weird, right? But then we started talking about, we talked about the idea of a luxury tax on foreign players. So we were talking about incentives of how to de-incentivize signing foreign players.
Incentives on how to de-incentivize?
Yeah, so sorry, de-incentivizing signing foreign players and incentivizing signing and fielding American players. And we came up with the idea of a luxury tax on foreign players. We forgot to mention that MLS roster do have rules about how many foreigners you can have. I just want to say for the record, we did know that existed. Everybody who's emailed us and tweeted us, we did know that existed. It's just that we kind of weren't talking about that. We were talking about the luxury tax idea.
Well, and I think part
we should have mentioned it.
Part of the reason why we definitely should have, but part of the reason why we didn't talk about it is because yes, those rules are in place, but they're obviously not having the intended effect because you can look at a lot of these teams that are playing and you'll see 1, 2, sometimes maybe 3 and 4 Americans, but generally speaking, you don't see a lot of U.S. talent, and certainly you don't see a lot of young U.S. talent getting those minutes in these important games. And so I think, and like what I responded to on Twitter to somebody was that like right now, I think each team gets 8 spots, and then they can trade those away. Some use fewer, DC United, New England.
I've seen teams have 10 though. You
can
trade up.
You can trade up. So there are some that have 11, I think. The Red Bulls, I think, have 13, maybe?
We're going to 11 or 13.
That's fine. when I go to, like, archaic MLS rules, I tend to go back to Metro Stars.
So the other thing is you can also have permanent residents, green card holders, like myself. Like, I would count as a domestic player for a US team.
Homegrown players as well?
In some cases, that's good because it's like Darlington Nagbe was a permanent resident for a long time till he was a citizen, then is a US national team player, right? So that can work out nicely. But in other cases, you can have a permanent resident who's never going to play for the US. He's just going to keep playing for like Jamaica or Costa Rica or some other CONCACAF team. Yeah.
So I think you run into those issues. And then, but like really, like I might be getting myself into trouble here, but I would say you look at the case of like Andy Nahar when he was with DC United. Andy Nahar, like I think was discovered in Annandale or that area, but is representing Honduras.
So Northern Virginia.
So even Andy Nahar necessarily when he was playing for DC kind of wouldn't. It like goes against that thing because I don't think he takes up an international roster spot, but he's still not a young American getting minutes, even though he was discovered in Annandale, hence the homegrown player issue as well.
I would say, though, even though we talked about ways, like mechanisms within MLS to get more young Americans on the field, in the end, I'm not fully comfortable with it. And I don't know if, like, maybe politically that doesn't sit well with me because I'm not a big fan of, like, protectionist type ideas.
Well, I think this is...
I don't know why I was willing to carve out an exception just for American soccer.
Well, no, but I think I this was last night, so I should be able to recall this more clearly. But I think we both kind of stumbled here because also we've talked about like China does it, Turkey does it, and I don't think it's worked.
Did it, right? Didn't it not work for Turkey? And they were like,
they still have some rules in place, but it's certainly not. I think before it was like you can have like 5 players in your team, and that's it. And they've relaxed that a little bit. I think there are still some in there. China the same.
So they played 4 and a 5-a-side.
Yeah, exactly. I still don't think like limiting the talent you can bring in, like kind of artificially helps you at all.
That's what I kind of like the luxury tax idea because it doesn't say you can't have any more foreign players, but it just means that if you do, then you have to pay a tax into this pot, and then that money is then distributed down to fund American players. But even that is like disincentivizing, de-incentivizing signing foreigners feels a bit protectionist as well.
It does, but I think this is where, and it's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's what I'm going to go with, is that like you kind of have to put more thought into it from a variety of perspectives. Because even just chatting about it before we started recording, one thing we kind of landed upon is that Major League Soccer is a very physical league, and that young players who are less developed tend to get knocked around. And so then the question is like, if you had referees call the game a little bit differently, so suddenly maybe something that was considered a 50-50 shoulder challenge last season, now that was pretty aggressive, that's going to be a free kick. If you start policing the game differently,
so you kind of baby-proof MLS, like
a little bit, yeah.
So all the rough corners, you put those little
all of the empty sockets that you had left open, you plug those up. Got to be careful.
And then we can get 17-year-olds playing.
I mean a little bit because
I'm joking, but I kind of mean it as well.
To me, it's like it sort of is the professional adult equivalent of like what we've talked about with youth soccer, where it's like if you want to focus on how to like develop your players technically. I know people have some issues with it, but like the build-out line and reducing heading, obviously that has health issues, but also that cuts down on the incentive of playing those long balls over the top. And so even at like youth level, there has been some experimentation with how do you develop players more technically. And then I think to do all that and then to get to MLS where it's like, well, okay, you're on your own. You might get knocked around. It's a physical league. It's kind of grueling at times in terms of like the travel, how much you have to play, all that stuff. Like it doesn't necessarily lend itself to a young player who is still developing.
So I would agree with that, and I think what we've landed on is that there's no one quick fix, right? Like the luxury tax idea or like a quota idea or just changing the referee rules. I don't think any individual thing would encourage more MLS teams to play younger players, right? And I think, I hesitate saying this, but we somehow need to look to Germany, and I understand it's a different system. but Germany has no regulations in place that forces Bundesliga teams to play younger players. It doesn't, right? There's no minimum German players that have to be played or anything like that. And yet, young Germans keep getting chances with major Bundesliga teams. And sometimes young Americans get chances with Bundesliga teams. I'm looking at McKennie and Pulisic playing for Schalke and Dortmund when they're teenagers. Like, that's kind of rare. And what I think is, it seems to me in the Bundesliga, there's a willingness just to play teenagers as opposed to play young Germans. It's just that the majority of the teenagers tend to be German for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true.
So maybe that's the thing we need to change in MLS then, is just encourage more teenagers to get on the field.
We get more German ownership. There we go.
Okay, but in terms of like little fixes and changes that we can make, I do see there's something on the horizon. I saw a Paul Tenorio 442 article about how when MLS teams sell homegrown players, they are in the future there are plans for them to keep more of the transfer fee. So instead, I think they just got like a certain percentage of allocation money, and some went to the league, and they're going to shift that more and more so the teams get to keep more of the money and they're able to do more with it. So you essentially incentivize a team like Dallas to get their youngsters in the team early, and then they can sell them on, and then the team has more money to play with. So that's one thing that actually could be in the works and could be working. Because we're really at a point where there's all these U20 and U17 national team players who we've just been excited about. This really is the moment, right? Like, we can track Andrew Carlton, Chris Goslin, how many minutes do they get for Atlanta in the next year or two, and we'll know if the system is going to work for them or not.
Yeah.
And I think we should panic again if we go 2 years and Carlton hasn't really played, then suddenly we should sound all kinds of alarm bells.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I would also add, though, that like it's kind of the frustrating aspect of Major League Soccer, the consistently frustrating aspect of Major League Soccer is that to make changes, you have to change this, and then is that already a rule, or can you bend that?
Yeah.
How do you and so there's so many like rules on top of rules, and then like some of the foundational structure inhibits some of the growth we're talking about. So there's a lot of change that has to happen.
The other answer is you blow up the whole thing, you have an open system, and then every club keeps all the money from every young player that they sort of raise and play and sell on.
And now we've moved into way deeper territory that I don't really want to go into anymore.
That's still a show for the future, right? Don't we we're going to have the Total Soccer Show plan for Pro Rel, where we'll try and map it out. Maybe in a couple of weeks. It's going to take some work.
It will take some work, for sure.
Even to do it in an imaginary way takes some work. So imagine how hard it is to do it for real.
Yep. So instead of that, should we talk about an advertiser?
Yes. Today's sponsor is Ruffneck Scarves. Ruffneck Scarves, our oldest sponsor. Been with us a long time. We put out a tweet earlier today asking if you were going to design a custom Ruffneck scarf to commemorate the USA-Portugal game, what would it look like? And we got so many good answers. We can't read all of them out, but we can read some of them.
That's right, because Ruffneck Scarves do have that custom scarf option. It is not simply putting in a tweet and then they design it for you. You've got to put some work in. But you can still come up with the idea. And we've had several people, starting with John Adams, not that one, saying Weston McKennie, Danny Williams, and Tyler Adams on one side. Side two is every time travel device, TARDIS, time turners, Bill and Ted's phone booth, etc.
So I know what two of those three are. What's a time turner?
I think that's Harry Potter.
Really? Oh, okay. It sounds very J.K. Rowling.
How dare you?
No, I mean...
I feel like that was a negative comment.
No, I meant it as a compliment.
Since you refuse to read the books or see the movies, or both?
I've seen all the movies.
Okay, but you haven't read the books.
Yeah.
Well, as we all know, books and movies are the exact same thing. So...
Moving books, that's what they are. Kenton Starlet says his scarf would have Bradley, I assume Michael Bradley, handing the keys to McKennie and Adams. I like that. And because I'm not a cable executive with a bad grasp of US men's national team optics, it will not feature Bruce Arena anywhere.
That's a good idea. That's a good start. Thomas says Weston McKennie dancing through Portuguese defenders on the front, and what a howler advertisement on the back.
Did you get that?
Poor Ethan Horvath.
So they did. I checked What a Howler's timeline. They did tweet out the Horvath howler with hashtag What a Howler.
Of course.
Oh. Alex Dwyer says his scarf would have Washington crossing
Why does that make you so sad? He made a mistake.
Oh, no.
Stop being all like, oh.
It just would have been better if he kept it out, basically.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. Alex Dwyer says Washington crossing the Delaware, but instead of George Washington, it's Danny Williams.
I think they had like the same number of tattoos, so that makes sense.
Well, the reason it made me laugh is so I've seen that picture. Obviously, it's Washington like at the brow of the
prow,
the prow. That's the one of the ship, like kind of like pointing his body forward, right? And Danny Williams already has that kind of like angular hair. You know what I'm saying? The angular features. So I can imagine him just jutting out like this way.
All right,
onward.
Sure.
No?
Why not? Spencer Kamak says, not
He's
entirely
an
sure.
aerodynamic defensive midfielder, is what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Not entirely sure, but certain one side is pretty and the other has a hole in it.
Oh, no. That's the hardest one. You don't get that?
No.
The hole is Ethan Horvath.
Okay. Gotcha.
Big enough for a ball to
I like
stick
that
to,
you
assume.
keep acting as though you're upset by Ethan Horvath, but you compiled these and there are 3 Ethan Horvath ones
Well,
in here.
I don't know. Sometimes it strikes me as funny and sometimes it strikes me as depressing.
There we go. Things can be 2 things.
Swifty Witch says it would be Horvath's arms and the scarf would always slip off your neck. See, that one makes me sad even though it's funny.
See? And yet you chose it. So thank you to everyone who suggested those possible custom scarves. Obviously at Ruffneck Scarves you can get more than custom scarves since they're the official providers of scarves to the U.S. national team, to Major League Soccer, to USL, and to the NCAA.
Yeah, maybe get ready for a college tournament. You could buy a scarf to support your college team as the men's and women's college soccer tournaments begin. You can also listen to Top Draw Soccer for some previews.
And I believe we had, forgive me, because as always, my long-running tradition is not being able to remember who tweeted us what, but we had somebody tweet us that their child had chosen a Memphis, I think it was, scarf, which was made by Ruffneck Scarves.
Yes.
So see, they make all types of scarves that can be used for all types of things.
I also want to say that maybe it's safe to buy a US soccer scarf again after the USA-Portugal result. It's safer than it was.
Sure.
It's safer to go back in the water.
Sure.
So,
and if you want to go back in the water, you can use the discount code TOTALSOCCERSHOW, all one word, all uppercase, to get 20% off at ruffneckscarves.com. That's RUFFNECK scarves.com.
Thank you to Ruffneck Scarves for sponsoring today's episode of the Total Soccer Show.
There we are.
Taylor, it's draft time.
It is.
It's DNQ draft time.
Oh, no, we've forgotten a coin again. I think I got one over here. I do.
Yeah.
All right, so, Daryl, I'll let you call it in the air to determine first pick.
Should we tell people what we're doing first? Or is it pretty obvious?
Yeah, we can go ahead.
So we're each going to draft a team. Like, we're not going to do a snake draft. Please don't email us and say you should do a snake draft. It's too complicated. We're not going to do it. We're going to go back and forth. We're each going to pick a player.
By the way, just before we get those tweets, it's not too complicated. We're just happy with the way we've got it.
There we go, yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we're going to each pick players that did not qualify for the World Cup. We know that Peru-New Zealand hasn't happened at the time, but if we're honest, no Peruvian or New Zealand players would have made our 11s.
Probably not.
And we're going to each construct a team of players that did not qualify for the World Cup.
Alrighty.
Heads.
Heads, he says. Heads it is.
Yes.
Daryl Grove gets first pick.
Oh, no, I'm overwhelmed with choice now.
All right.
Okay, looking down my list, I think the toughest spot to fill is centre forward, and therefore, with my first pick of the did not qualify draft, I'm going to choose Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang of Gabon.
That is what I figured you would do. That is a solid pick. And I'm going to have to think about what I want to do because of that solid pick.
Well,
but since that was a player that I very much wanted, I'm going to take a player that I think you would have liked. I'm going to go with Gareth Bale.
Oh, he was next on my list. Yeah, good
Gareth
choice.
Bale for me.
All right, so that means you're taking attacking midfielders off the board. So I am going to go with... I'm going to go Christian Pulisic.
All right.
Christian Pulisic is in my team.
Have fun with him because I'm going to take a man that is near and dear to your heart.
We should maybe be explaining why we want these players, but I guess Pulisic's obvious, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Well, I think it's also kind of difficult to explain why I want these players because I have 2 different formations I might go with.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see what ends up happening. But since you took Pulisic, I'm just going to make you sad. And I'm going to go Marco Verratti.
No! Taylor, I thought we were friends. Why would you do that?
Because he's part of my team. He was one of my first selections. He was one of the players I wanted. He was number 4 on my draft board. So there you go.
All right, so I guess because you've taken a midfielder, I'm going to have to fill out my midfield a little bit. I really did want Verratti. I really am disappointed he's not going to be at the World Cup because I love his game. I love the way he plays. But a similar-ish player in some ways, Arturo Vidal.
Yep.
He's going in my central midfield. Get in there, Arturo.
I mean, it's a safe bet. It is kind of crazy he won't be there. And then I think he's also
retired,
at least as
right?
of now, he's retired from international duty. So we'll see how long that lasts.
But honestly, like we were talking earlier, he's had a fine international career, right? He's got nothing to worry about. He's got Copa America medals. Yeah,
he does. Well, since you have taken away that center forward, I'm going to hold off on that.
You seem less
one.
certain than in drafts previous.
Well, it's mostly just because there are so many options that it's tough to know exactly where I want to go. But I think I'm going to go back to my defense, and I'm going to go with... it's tough because nobody qualified, so there's nobody who's like truly in form. But if I had to go with one of these defenders, I would go with Leonardo Bonucci.
That's a good choice at centre back. Bonucci was the one guy. I watched the Italy-Sweden game, he was putting nice passes,
Yep.
sort of breaking the midfield and getting balls into forwards, but then they were still like collapsed on by Swedish defenders straight away.
Yeah.
Was it Bonucci that played with a face mask as well?
Yes, he had his nose broken in the first leg, played the second leg, still didn't make it.
So he really wanted to go, so I'm glad you're giving him the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you could easily just pick the Italy, like an 11 composed entirely of Italian players, and you'd be just fine.
All right, well, since I've already got Vidal, I'm going to pair him up with Alexis Sanchez.
Ooh.
This is going to be the Chileans that didn't make it roster.
What's this formation you're going with?
TBD.
You've just said you're going to pair him with.
Well,
so that
I mean,
doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be in the middle.
It means
together.
they're both Chilean.
I see. Yeah. Okay. I gotcha. All right. Then I'm going to keep going with my center backs, I think.
I'm going to regret this, aren't I?
I don't know, because you've taken some good players off the board. It's mostly I'm just trying to adjust to where you've already drafted to know I don't need to pick there again. So I'm going to go Virgil van Dijk as one of my center backs. Mm-hmm.
He wasn't even on my list,
Yep.
and I've really grown to love him.
Again,
when I was
I've picked him out of
highlights.
spite.
You did. All right.
But
So
I also had him on my list.
all right, so I need some guys at centre back then. No, do you know what? There's a guy that I really want, and it's David Alaba. So I'm going to take him. And
Okay.
I'm going to drop him into my defence.
Okay. I like that you're just slowly kind of throwing this together.
So David Alaba, I think it's kind of sad that he's probably never going to have a successful international tournament because Austria are just never that good. Right? Do you remember we got kind of hyped for them at Euro 2016, and then they were pretty
That's what
awful.
I was thinking. I was trying to remember, and then I was like,
pretty
yeah.
awful. And they tried putting him at every possible position. So joining my DNQ team, David Alaba probably has the best chance of being on a good international team.
Okay.
Shout out to all our Austrian listeners.
Well, since you've gone with your player who could play anywhere, but I'm going to go with a player.
Your stalling tactic of since you've done this, then I'm doing this, it's not working for me.
It doesn't need to work for you because I can stall as long as I want, my friend. But I'm going to go with Antonio Valencia as my right back, my right-sided defender.
Yeah, that's a good choice. Valencia, bombing forward from right back. All right, it's time I picked a defender then. I think Chiellini is still on the board, right?
He is.
So I better take him before he goes as well.
All right.
Giorgio Chiellini is going to be one of my centre-backs. Here's what I won't do. I won't let him go up the left wing and send terrible crosses in the last 10 minutes of the game
You sure?
if we're losing. Yeah, that did not work. That absolutely did not work for Italy. It's not going to happen on my team. Stay back, Giorgio. Stay back and defend.
So how many have you picked so far?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right, and since you went first, I believe it is my selection now since I've picked 5. I'm going to round out my center backs. I'm going with Eric Bailly. Eric Bailly as a third center back. You didn't see that one coming, did you, Daryl?
I think I also forgot Eric Bailly when we did the Africa Best 11 draft. My apologies to Eric Bailly.
It's all right. You know, you're just hurting his feelings.
I guess I can hold off on my centre backs then, right? If you've got all of yours now.
Maybe.
Maybe I should look to left back. There is a guy that I very much admire, and his name is Sead Kolasinac at Arsenal. He plays for Bosnia-Herzegovina. They did not make it. He's going in my team. Come on, Sead.
In keeping with Total Soccer Show tradition, I had 3 options at left back. Daryl has chosen 2 of them. So thank you for that.
What? Oh, David Alaba was your other one? I'm sorry.
So
buddy.
I'm going to move on to rounding out my midfield, and I'm going with, as one of my more attack-minded midfielders, Marek Hamšík.
Oh, he was on my list as well.
Slovakia did not make it, but Marek Hamšík made my squad.
So my understanding is Slovakia finished second in their group.
But they're the worst points, yep.
Yep, so there are 9 second-place teams. The top 8 go to the playoffs. Slovakia are in that 9th spot. That's really unfortunate.
You are correct.
Oh, Marek Hamšík.
You are correct on all accounts. It is definitely unfortunate.
I'm correct, but you still get Marek Hamšík, and I don't, right? I'm going to go for my second central midfielder then. I'm going to go Weston McKennie.
Really?
I just want him. I just think it's really sad that he didn't get to make it. I want him in my midfield. I have a Vidal McKennie central midfield.
I feel like we don't really need
Come at me.
We don't even need to put these out because you're just going to get 100% of the, yep, Daryl wins because you have 2 Americans in there.
It wasn't a popularity vote. It's more just that I'm really sad about him not going, and kind of the way I'm selecting this is players I wish were there.
You wish were there?
Yeah.
I see. I got you. That's an interesting way to do it. All right. Well, then, with that in mind, I'm going to take that into consideration because one of the things we talked about when doing this was that if a player is retired but still could play for the national team that didn't make the World Cup, then they're in with consideration.
How you're defining could. I mean, if you're going to pick Diego Maradona,
I am not,
I've got some
but
questions.
I am going to pick Zlatan Ibrahimovic because we discussed whether or not if Sweden made it, would he come out of retirement? He said he's not going to be there.
This is a did not qualify 11.
Do you want to do it that way? That's why I didn't fail your 11. I was wondering if you were going to let me have this.
Okay, so no, you can't have him. But the main reason is that I honestly think there's a chance that come March, April, like maybe someone at the Swedish FA talks to Zlatan and Zlatan's like, yeah, okay, let's do it. You know what I mean? I think he might turn up at the World Cup.
I feel like I exploited a loophole, and you refuse to acknowledge this loophole. But such is life.
I think you poked at something thinking it was a loophole, and you're like, oh no, that's a closed door.
All right. I mean, to each his own. Then let's look at my midfield. I'm going to go with my final midfielder, and it's going to be, since you took Arturo Vidal, I want sort of a defensive-minded destroyer. Daniele De Rossi goes in there for me as my defensive midfielder.
You've ruined a good joke.
Why is that?
I was going to have Daniele De Rossi on the bench,
Uh-huh.
and then if I tried to bring him on, he'd point at someone who he thinks... Basically, he'd tell me if my tactics were wrong.
Sure.
So De Rossi would be like my tactical conscience for what I should be doing. But he's a great choice and he deserves it. I guess he deserves another World Cup, hasn't he? He's already had a fine international career.
Yeah, ask Brian McBride about whether or not he's been at the World Cup
apart
before.
from that moment, he's had a fine international career. Okay, I think my final... This is gonna hurt to do this, Taylor. I don't want to do this to you, but for my attacking midfielder, I'm taking... Henrik Mkhitaryan.
That's fine.
Mkhitaryan is my number 10.
You haven't been watching him lately. That is fine by me. You are more than welcome to have Mkhitaryan in there.
I can't remember his national team. Is it
Armenia?
Armenia, and I think they did not do well in the group stage.
And he is not doing very well right now at club level either.
As Alexi Lalas says, form is temporary, class is permanent.
Sure, I think so. I think that's what a lot of people say when they're on the downslope of their career. Yeah, so he is...
Wait, no, Mkhitaryan's not on the downslope, right? Is he mid-20s?
I'm a little bit nervous.
He's fine.
No, my point is simply that, to say, form is permanent, class is forever, whatever, that's sort of a way to get out of... Yeah, because it's a nonsense answer. Because there are plenty of players who are in a bad run of form.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's not going to last forever. It's class is permanent means that he'll come good again at some
But really,
point.
He was one that I had on my short list, and then I was like, no, I've seen enough of him lately. He's got to re-earn that inclusion. So I think maybe I might play somebody out of position then, because there are so many eligible attackers left that we haven't even gotten to. And with that in mind, I might have to switch Gareth Bale to the opposite side and put Arjen Robben into my team, who is retired, will not be playing for the Netherlands again, theoretically.
He retired as soon as the Netherlands didn't qualify, right? So he's in the DNQ 11.
There we go.
Yeah. So, is that your whole outfield team?
No, I got one more outfield player and then a goalkeeper.
Neither of us has chosen a goalkeeper.
I got two more, excuse me.
Neither of us has chosen a goalkeeper yet, have they?
We have not, and I feel like there's a reason for that, but we'll see what happens.
I was going to do kind of a standoff thing, but I guess it's not working. All right, so my other centre-back, it's going to have to be... These are tough choices. I'm going to go, this is weird, Matthias de Ligt.
Okay.
The Ajax and Netherlands teenager who really had a bad qualifying campaign and again is not in great form. But as a guy who was starting for the Dutch national team, I would have been really excited to see a teenage centre-back at the World Cup, if that makes sense. Just as a point of interest and to see how he did. And he's obviously very highly rated, but made a couple of mistakes during qualifying. But he gets a second chance playing alongside Chiellini in my team.
Alrighty. So I like your approach to this draft, which is the players that you really would have liked to see. I've tried to do a combination of those two.
It might the wish you were here 11.
And I still have a forward to be filled. And part of me wants to choose Josie Altidore, but I think I am still so sour on him from what's gone on recently and then kind of the way things went in qualifying.
Taking the dive.
I don't think I can bring myself to pick him.
There's a couple of better players as well.
Oh, yeah, a few. But I'm going to round up my outfield, and I'm going to go with Daley Blind as my left wing back.
Interesting. Oh, we're going wing backs.
Yep.
So who are your forwards then? Because I went to Aubameyang first, and you didn't pick any centre forwards.
I haven't picked one yet.
Are you having Arjen Robben as a striker?
No, I haven't picked yet. That's all. I'm just debating.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Doesn't concern you.
All right, so... My goalkeeper. I'll tell you exactly what I was going to do. I thought you were going to pick Gigi Buffon at some point, and I had an awesome backup choice that I was really excited to go with. But since I've only got one pick left, I don't have a goalkeeper, and Gigi Buffon is still on the board, I can't not take him.
All right.
Gigi Buffon is my goalkeeper for my Wish You Were Here 11.
That is fine. Who were you deciding between, Gigi Buffon and?
I'm not going to tell you in case you pick him.
I feel like you were deciding between Gigi Buffon and Donnarumma, is my guess.
I had Donnarumma on the list, but then I found an even more exciting teenage player that I would have liked to see there.
That's fine.
Who, let's put it this way, would have seen a lot more action had his team qualified for the World Cup.
All right. I don't think I have who you were going to select then, who your mystery selection would have been, because I am going with Jan Oblak.
All right.
The maybe possible future Manchester United goalkeeper. We'll see how that goes.
Atletico Madrid keeper right
yes,
now?
And would have gone with Slovakia, I believe, but obviously will not.
Don't
but I want to see what he can do.
You also have Marek Hamšík as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've gone full Slovak, I've gone full Chile.
I mean, sort of, in the sense that those are the best players available. I would have happily gone with either of your Chileans, since I had both of them in my preferred starting 11. And I think in most of the selections we've done, I've gone with Arturo Vidal whenever possible.
All right, so I'll give you my 11. Maybe then we'll do some honourable mentions afterwards. My 11 is Gigi Buffon in goal. David Alaba is my right back. Sead Kolasinac is my left back. Central defenders are Delete and Chiellini. It's a 4-2-3-1. Two holding midfielders are Arturo Vidal and Weston McKennie. I'm kind of excited for that pairing. I think I'm just excited for Weston to play alongside, a senior international player. My attacking band of three is Pulisic on the right, I'm going to say. Mkhitaryan is the attacking mid, and Alexis Sanchez on the left. And then Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is my centre forward.
Alrighty, for me, I've gone with a 3-4-1-2 is what I'm going to call it. Maybe a 3-4-2-1. It's kind of rotating around. Might even just be a straight up 3-4-3. Who knows? But I've gone with as my three central defenders: Virgil van Dijk, Leonardo Bonucci, and Eric Bailly. Then
that's fearsome. That's three fearsome defenders.
And then with your like four in front of them, but two wing backs: Daley Blind, Daniele De Rossi, Mark Hamšík. Marco Verratti, and then Antonio Valencia, Mark Hamšík ahead of them, with like Gareth Bale and Arjen Robben playing together. That front three sort of rotating around as the situation necessitates.
I see hair envy in your front three, because Hamšík might have that sort of faux hawk thing he does. Gareth Bale's always got like a nice slick back thing, and then Arjen Robben's just running around with his bald head.
I feel like it's like it's a Goldilocks situation. It's like the three extremes, and you choose one you like. You go shaved head, you go not really long hair, and then you go Viking. It's fine. I've got two proper Vikings in my team, too, because Daniele De Rossi always looks terrifying.
Any honourable mentions, like players you maybe would have selected, but neither of us did?
Yeah, I mean, for goalkeepers, I had Buffon as an option, but I still think Jan Oblak might be better right now. And then Gigi Donnarumma would be another option there. I think Wilfried Zaha could have been in the conversation.
He was on my list as one of my possible attacking midfielders.
It speaks as to how far Riyad Mahrez has fallen, that he didn't... Like, I had him in my shortlist.
I did too. His team Algeria finished bottom of their group in African qualifying.
Yep. I mean... Forwards, it is a strange thing where there aren't like so many forwards around the world that are playing for like that quality of team that didn't make it. So like
it's almost as if you need a really good centre forward to be a team that qualifies for the World Cup.
Seems that way. Hence why maybe I tried to throw out Zlatan.
Because I honestly went to the Netherlands team and was like, all right, they must have a great centre forward that didn't make it, and there's really no like real standout. Yeah,
I think I had that one kid who scored a couple goals for them, whose name is, when I look it up, I can't even find it. So that's fine. Oh, Quincy Promes plays on the right side of their wing, but I can't say I know anything about him enough to say like, ooh, that's really exciting. But like Edin Dzeko, Eduardo Vargas, maybe Belotti of Italy, but again, those are guys I don't really know well enough to say like that really excites me, which is why I went with what I did.
Joseph Martinez is a shout, maybe. Joseph Martinez. Yep. Speaking of Atlanta players, I also had Almiron as a possibility in my sort of attackers. I think he's not quite at the standard of the other three, but after watching him for Atlanta this year, it does make me sad that he won't get to show his stuff at the World Cup with Paraguay.
Yep.
Who disagrees with me, though?
Who's that?
Atlanta United.
Yeah, I think
they're probably very
pretty
happy.
Pleased. Pretty pleased that no one else is going to get to notice him.
He's out of the shop window.
He is. A couple other players that I had maybe like on the outside. I thought you were going to go Virgil van Dijk because I know how much you like him. So I had.
If we could do this again, I would.
I had Gary Medel waiting in the wings.
I had Gary Medel as well. Love me some
Daniele Brugani as well. And then the right side I thought was really interesting, my right side of defense, because all of my possible right backs, right wing backs, all play for Manchester United, because it's Antonio Valencia, it's Matteo Darmian, and it's Timothy Fosu-Mensah. You could also argue plays centre back or right back. Any one of them would have been fine with me.
I got a couple of runners up for you. Seamus Coleman with Ireland won't be going. Everton right back. He's really exciting player. I think he's out of people's minds because he was out with injury for so long. Left back, Kieran Tierney, the Celtic and Scotland young left back. I think he would have been an exciting player to see at the World Cup. Ben Davies at left back for
I had
Wales.
Him in that shortlist, yeah.
Ashley Williams, I thought about including just because I love the Welsh tactical column so much. I know he's not in great form, but do you remember how many great goals were scored when they did a tactical column around Williams on the corner kicks and they split and then he heads it in?
Friend of the show, occasional guest Pav, and I use the Welsh tactical column all the time in our games.
Oh, you scored it in a men's game?
That we did.
Very nice, very nice for you. Serge Aurier as a possible fullback.
Yeah, liability is what I say there. On and off the field, liability.
And here's my secret goalkeeper that I wish had made it. He plays for Venezuela. It's Vilca, I believe is how you pronounce it, Fariñez. So he was the guy who was the Venezuela U20 World Cup keeper, who was so great during the U20 World Cup that he was promoted to the Venezuelan senior team. He's the Venezuelan senior keeper at 19 and has been consistently impressive. I feel like he would have been one of those names that people were like, oh, we'd never heard of this guy and he's one of the stars of the World Cup. But Venezuela, the reason he managed to play for the senior team though is that Venezuela kind of failed out early and that's why he got the spot.
Correct.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, I had Aaron Moy in my list as like one of my certainties.
No, he made it.
If they didn't go, I had him like ready to be picked.
Yep.
But in the end, they made it, and that's good for Australia.
Australia beat Honduras 3-1. Australia have qualified.
They have indeed.
If there's anyone that we missed, please definitely just tweet at us and write no player's name and then question mark. We love it when people do that. It's our favourite thing that happens.
Miralem Pjanic, Jorginho Wijnaldum, Frank Cassier, Joe Allen. I'm just trying to list ones that, that can head that one off.
Yeah, let's not get into the thing where we try and list everyone so we don't get any of those tweets.
Let's go through every single squad, list all the players.
I did that in my prep as quickly as I could.
Insigne, El Shaarawy. Yep, let's go.
All right, Taylor. So I kind of enjoyed that.
Yeah.
It was a good draft.
You kind of enjoyed that.
It's a good draft. Final thing on today's show.
It is weird, though. You're absolutely right, though, to go back to a point you made like 10 minutes ago.
Strikers.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting that the teams that have like the out-and-out best strikers in the world are more often than not playing in the World Cup.
Even Italy, like De Rossi may disagree, but it's not like there's some striker who's just like a forward that everybody talks about and is scoring millions of goals, right? Like Belotti isn't sort of Robert Lewandowski. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean, like he's maybe theoretically going to be there, and I think a lot of clubs are interested in signing him. But again, he's not one who right now I would say, Aubameyang, Lewandowski, that sort of personality, that sort of like, yep, he is definitely in there. He's definitely starting. He's going to make things happen.
So there you go. All right, 4 scouting reports to read today, starting with Steven Hernandez scouting a young American, Keaton Parks, the 20-year-old American defensive midfielder who is at Benfica B. Steven says Keaton is taking advantage of the international break by training with the Benfica senior team, since so many first-team regulars are away with their respective national teams. So far this season for Benfica B, Keaton Parks has 2 goals and 2 assists in 11 appearances. This is a young American to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that'll work for me. Michael Fisk scouting Andreas Christensen, 21-year-old Danish centre-back for Chelsea. Tuesday night was a good one for Andreas as he got on the score sheet to help Denmark secure World Cup qualification.
I didn't know that.
And now Michael's sad again.
Christensen scored for Denmark in that Ireland game?
After some crafty dribbling from fellow TSS scoutee Pione Sisto, Christensen took a first-time shot with the outside of his right that bobbled its way into the back of the net. So that is good, for sure. Congratulations to Denmark and Christensen. P.S., says Michael, this may be my last decent update for a while as I have gotten engaged.
Congratulations.
You guys know what's involved with wedding planning, so I will most likely be a silent scout for the short-term future. I'll definitely be back for the World Cup, or if Chelsea make a deep run to the Champions League, I hope that is okay.
I guess we'll keep an eye on Christensen ourselves in the meantime, yeah.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Michael.
And congratulations.
Alex M. is scouting Cameron Carter-Vickers, CCV, the 19-year-old American centre-back on loan at Sheffield United from Tottenham. Alex says CCV played 45 minutes for the USA, subbing on at half-time in their 1-1 draw with Portugal. Promising start to his international career. He has a header hit the crossbar. He did, right? It wasn't McKennie, it was CCV because we rewatched it. Showed good chemistry with Matt Miazga and nearly got kung fu kicked by Portugal's goalkeeper. We didn't talk about this on the review show, did we? CCV could have scored the winner.
He could have scored the winner, and maybe the goalkeeper should have been cautioned or potentially sent off, depending on how dangerous you want to look at that one.
It's a weird thing. I can't remember the goalkeeper's name right now. But
Beto? Something like that.
That sounds right. So anyway, he got his foot really high and sort of took it off of Carter Vickers as the ball was bouncing up. So it was good play from the keeper to get there, but it was also dangerous play because his foot was very close to CCV's face.
It feels like one of those situations where the referee looks at it and thinks, goalkeeper gets him leniency. Like, poor guy, he's back there all by himself. We'll let this one slide.
Maybe if that had been a defender, there'd have been more trouble.
I think so.
Also,
if it had been Pepe, it's probably straight red.
I hate to criticise, but if CCV had been a striker, I don't think he would have taken the touches that lifted the ball up to begin with.
That's possible.
You know what I mean? The way that ball kind of just fell to him, a striker would have maybe buried it first time.
All right, well, you heard it here first, folks. Daryl Grove does not rate Cameron Carter-Vickers, and therefore he's in my honorable mentions as one of my centre-backs.
I rate him as a centre-back.
That's not what I heard.
I rate CCV as a centre-back. I look forward to more scouting reports from Alex as well, to follow CCV at Sheffield United, where he's been playing. We really want to know sort of how he does week in, week out. I hope he's on the second-best team in the English Championship.
Craig Turner scouting Joe Gomez, 20-year-old English centre-back for Liverpool. Joe Gomez started centre-back for England, in their 0-0 draw with Brazil at Wembley. Gomez was named man of the match as England's defence shut down Neymar, Gabriel Jesus, and Felipe Coutinho.
I did not know that Gomez was man of the match. I actually haven't seen this game because this game kicked off like 45 minutes before USA-Portugal, and I put USA first and watched that game instead.
Yep.
But I'm going to go back and watch England 0, Brazil 0.
All
so
right.
no goals,
have fun.
But England holding Brazil and a Joe Gomez man of the match performance, more or less worth it, I'm going to say.
That might be one of the more England hipster things I think I've ever heard from a soccer fan, but sure.
We're coming towards a World Cup year. I've got to start
true.
paying attention to my team.
Some of us are. I refuse to acknowledge it as a World Cup year.
Is that right?
Yep. No, of course I do.
All right. Well, thank you to Stephen, Michael, Alex, and Craig for today's scouting reports. If you want to get involved, it's TotalSoccerShow.com/join. If you want to just support the show, you don't have to scout a player. You can sort of join the scouting network where you sort of send us a monthly subscription, keep the show going, but click Silent Scout. You won't have to do any scouting. You'll just be supporting TSS. Keep the show going.
Yes.
Not that there's any danger of it going away, but it will, it will help us.
Yeah, it definitely helps us. So yes, please keep doing that. And also, Daryl Grove, we've had some updates on the NASL US soccer situation.
Yes, I haven't clicked further updates in the last few hours since we started sitting down to record. But the rumor last night was that in the NASL US soccer lawsuit that's currently happening, they've apparently gone away from the legal stuff and sat down somewhere and tried to come to some sort of settlement that would keep NASL as a Division II league in the United States. I don't have any further updates for you, but I would say if you follow Mickey Turner, who was on the show to talk about it last week, go follow him on Twitter.
It's Mikee, right?
It's Miki.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's actually, if you just want his Twitter, it's Turner ESQ, Turner Esquire.
That's easier.
I remember that from my bad Bill and Ted joke at the end of the of the episode. Also follow Professor Stephen Bank, Prof Bank, and also follow Nipun Chopra, who was also on the show talking about this way back when. Other people are covering it, but those are the three that I see most often having updates about what is going on with NASL and US soccer.
Agreeance.
Thanks, Taylor.
Yep.
All right, well, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and Taylor and I will be back tomorrow with more Total Soccer Show.